Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week, I continue my series on the Pantheons of Scion 2nd edition by talking about the Teotl. Now, commonly, the Teotl would be referred to as the Aztec Pantheon. However, there's a little note that they're supposedly Huitzilopochtli, as a command, told them to never call themselves the Aztecs anymore, and to call themselves the Mexihcah. Now, I'm not sure on that, but for purposes of sticking with what people are familiar with, I'm going to refer to them as the Aztecs. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I talk about the Teotl. First, let me say I am probably going to butcher some of these names. These are tongue twisters to say, and I'm not meaning that in any disrespect. They are just very difficult names to say. With that out of the way, the Aztec Pantheon starts with its two primordials. Whether these were actually worshipped or not is not actually known. What is known is that they created the four Teotls. These were Huitzilopochtli, Teotl himself, Teotl, and Quetzalcoatl. While each of them is assigned a color and a direction, it's not really important for what I'm talking about. Anyway, they were tasked with creating things. Well, there was this problem. There was this vast water over the face of the earth, and every time they created something, it would fall into the water and then be eaten by this, titan, Mexihcah. Teotl lured Mexihcah to the surface of the water by using his leg as bait. Oops, he lost his leg. And then the four Teotls slew Mexihcah and used his body to create land. Except he wasn't quite dead. And to keep him placated, they found out blood sacrifices worked really, really well for doing that. And it's kind of part of why the Aztecs had the big thing with blood sacrifices. The other part of it comes into the cycle of the suns. Alright, so there have been 5 suns. The first was Huitzilopochtli himself. And, he wasn't that strong of a sun. He was still wounded and all that, so he wasn't able to shine that bright. And, Quetzalcoatl saw he wasn't up to the task and knocked him out of the sky. And Huitzilopochtli, called on jaguars to eat humans, as one is wont to do. And Quetzalcoatl took the space in the sun, as the sun. And, of course, they made new people, a little bit smaller than the giants of the time of the first sun. And people became decadent. They kind of lost their veneration. And Huitzilopochtli turned the worst of them into monkeys. And Quetzalcoatl, as a god of wind, made a great hurricane that blew the rest of humanity away. And then the next sun up was Tlaloc, the rain god. And he was doing a great job right up until Huitzilopochtli stole his wife. And so Tlaloc got angry and stopped the rain. And the cries of humanity for rain to return kind of got on Tlaloc's nerves, and so he sent a rain of fire to shut them up by burning the world in fire. And, well, Tlaloc's new wife, I'm not even going to try and pronounce her name, I'm just going to go by the divine epithet she has, She of the Jade Skirt. She took over the job of the sun. And she was a good sun goddess. People were happy. And then Huitzilopochtli kind of asked, hey, are you sure these people are actually worshiping you because they love you, or are they worshiping you because of what you give them? And this made She of the Jade Skirt cry blood and drown the world. Now, in the process of all this, Quetzalcoatl, maybe there was a little bit of trouble with all these having to remake humans every new sun, but he went to Mictlan, the underworld, got the bones of all the humans from the previous ages, brought them back, put his blood on them, and that's how we got the humans today. And the new sun, Nanahuatzin literally sacrificed himself to become the fifth sun. And it kind of required blood from all of the Teotl to get him moving. This way, the idea being, if you have to give blood, you're not gonna screw up. Because he's the last sun. There's not going to be another sun after him. If the Teotl fail, well, it's bye. They done it. They failed. And this is the state that the Teotl are in. This is why of all the pantheons, they kind of have the attitude of, we can't fail, we have to succeed. We must keep the Titans at bay, keep the people happy, etc., etc., etc. Because if they fail, that's the end of the world. There's not going to be a sixth sun. And that's a lot of pressure on them. And I do mean, they are probably the most serious of the Pantheons, simply because of that pressure that is on them. But of course, that's the defining factor of them. They're not a jovial pantheon. Their trickster, Huitzilopochtli, also known as the Black Huitzilopochtli, a god of night, well, you saw how much his trickstering was bad stuff for humanity. So, even he isn't like the tricksters of other pantheons. He's a darker entity. And now we move on to the actual mechanical stuff about the Pantheon. Their virtues are hunger and sacrifice. And by hunger, what we're meaning is that the heroes, demigods, and gods of the Teotl cannot be content to just be where they are. They must always strive for more. They must seek out opportunities to be victorious. The hero doesn't sit waiting for a threat to come knocking on his door. The hero actively seeks out things to deal with. And if you get on one's bad side, a Teotl hero, Teotl demigod, Teotl god, is an implacable foe. They will track you to the ends of the earth because they hunger for the victory over you. And Teotl's sacrifice. You can't just dress someone up like a Teotl and sacrifice them in the hero's stead. You have to sacrifice from yourself. And this sacrifice most often is represented as their sense of duty to their chosen cause. That they will do what it takes no matter the cost. I mean, they will be the absolute first to help a friend. They will give you the shirt off their back. Literally. They'll volunteer to take the worst watches. And you got a suicide mission? They're in. But that's the thing. They don't, this gets back to the whole they can't fail. They must succeed. Which just kind of burns its way through the philosophy of the whole Pantheon. Creating these two actually complementary virtues. Much more complementary than other pantheons that form a two sides of the same coin type issue. Now, their relationships with other pantheons, they're still recovering from the Spanish conquest of the New World and are still in the point of forging ties, making pacts, getting along with the other pantheons. They have a kinship and mutual respect for the Manitou, and they are just recently renewing their ancient ties with the Mayan pantheon. And beyond that, their contact with the other pantheons is still fairly limited. And what is their greatest weakness? Their greatest weakness is that they just can't adapt quickly. It's Cortez wasn't a god, but because he was inscrutable, because they couldn't the Aztecs couldn't understand what he was. They called him a Teotl, and because they could not separate the unknown from the divine. And this issue is still sort of working its way through them. It's something they're still dealing with. And that ultimately is their greatest weakness. And with that, I finish with the Teotl. Next week, I will talk about a more familiar set of deities to most people. The Theoi, the Greek and Roman pantheon. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.